GM, everyone. Good morning. If you can hear me, please send an emoji. If you can hear me, please send an emoji. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, we'll be starting shortly, but before then, I would like to ask, how was your weekend? I hope you had a wonderful weekend. So, if you want to say anything, you can unmute and tell us about your weekend, how you spent your weekend, and also how you've been, learning and also building. If you have anything for us, just unmute and let us know. Thank you.
A new class and a new week. Last week we looked at Ethel.js. How can we make use of Ethel.js in our web application? Today we'll be looking at Hardhat, introduction to Hardhat. The combination of both Ethel.js and Hardhat is quite a very important one, especially in our development phase. So we need to really understand how both Ethel.js and Hardhat works and how we can improve our skills with it. Okay, so I'll go ahead to share my screen and then we can jump into this class. Okay, please let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, please can you see my screen? Can you just signify if you can see my screen?
Yeah, you can see your screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
098. Right. Don't give it to anyone. It's only for the staff.
Sorry, all right, please name it. The objectives for today's class: one, understanding Hardhat; two, installing and configuring Hardhat for smart contract development on Arbitrum. What is Hardhat? Hardhat is a development environment specifically designed for building and deploying smart contracts on Ethereum and other compatible blockchain networks, such as Arbitrum. In our applications, when you are trying to interact with smart contracts from your local text editor, your code editor, or even from your local version of your code, your smart contract. Hardhat is very useful in terms of deploys your smart contracts. And also it consists of different components for editing, compiling, debugging, and deploying your smart contracts and the decentralized applications. All of these work together to create a complete development environment. So making use of Hardhat and also your Ethel.js, you can have a complete development environment without making use of Remix. No, currently we make use of Remix for our editing, our deployment, and compilation. But Hardhat comes in place. And making use of Hardhat, you can have your development environment in one place, and like you can have that locally. Yeah, so like your Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is your code editor, right? But Hardhat can be installed in your Visual Studio Code, and made to interact with it. Now, what are the functions of Hardhat? One, Hardhat can be used in smart contract creation. What it does is that it simplifies the process of writing smart contracts in Solidity and other compatible languages. Developers can efficiently code and organize your smart contracts within Hardhat environment. Secondly, compilation. It provides a seamless compilation process for smart contracts, ensuring they are error-free and compatible with the targeted blockchain network. At this point, I believe all of us know what compilation means when we say compiling on smart contract. For all of us that interacted with Remix, we understand that before we can deploy, we must compile such smart contract. Now, Hardhat also has a seamless compilation process for contracts. Another function is in terms of testing. On Thursday, which is going to be our third class for this week, we'll be looking into Hardhat testing and we'll learn how to write tests, making use of for our smart contracts and all. Now, Hardhat comes equipped with an integrated testing framework that enables developers to create comprehensive test suites for their smart contracts. This allows for thorough testing of various functionalities and scenarios. When we talk about testing, generally, even in the programming sense, what we mean is ensuring your code works as intended. So if you create, let's say you write a code or a small component, smart contract for just one action. Now, there are testing frameworks that you can make use of, and then you write such tests as code also. But then when you run such tests, they ensure that what you wrote for your code, that is what you wrote, what you have written inside your code, yeah, is what is supposed to work. So the behavior of your code is working as expected. So that's what testing helps us to do generally in the programming sense. Now, in terms of other than smart contracts, you can also write tests for your smart contracts to ensure that okay, your smart contract works as intended, the behavior, there are no errors and all. So it's going to help you pick all that up. Now, another functionality of Hardhat is deployment. Once the smart contracts are developed and tested, Hardhat facilitates their deployment onto the Ethereum blockchain or other EVM, that is Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains like Arbitrum. It provides tools and commands to deploy contracts efficiently. So far, we have seen 4 functions of Hardhat, and we can see it's like a complete cycle from your smart contract creation to compilation to writing tests to deployment. So the whole flow we make use of when using Remix, we can see Hardhat also has every of that flow and functionality. What are the benefits of using Hardhat? One, efficiency. Streamlining the development process, minimizing complexities, and providing a smooth workflow from creation to deployment. We have seen the functionalities and we can see how it has been streamlined in order to minimize complexity. Now, another benefit is flexibility, supporting various functionalities, integrations, and customization to adapt to developers' needs and preference. Hardhat as is flexible. And lastly, we have compatibility, supporting Ethereum and Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains like Arbitrum, allowing developers to work across different blockchain environments seamlessly. Do we have any questions so far on what you have seen? Absence of questions. How do we set up Hardhat? Hardhat is used through a local installation in your project. When we say local installation, it means, yeah, so you have, so in terms of Visual Studio Code, it's installed locally. So when we say something is installed locally, it means it's on your device, right? And most times you don't necessarily need to be connected to the internet. Some requires internet, but it's installed on your device. You can always access it from your device. You don't need to go to a web applications or a browser to access it. Now, that's how Hardhat is used through a local installation in your project. Now, this way, your environment will be reproducible and you avoid version conflicts. Yeah. So, in continuation of our Hardhat setup, this is just the theoretical part. We'll see how to install that. Thank you for listening. And that's all for our slide. All right, Mr. Please, you can take over.
Thank you very much, King, for that. So I will share my screen now. The code for this tutorial is on our GitHub. So if you want to access it, you can easily access it from our GitHub. So let me share my screen. If you can see my screen, please signify by sending an emoji. Okay. Thank you very much, Tolulope. Trying to connect to this code space. Okay, welcome back. So what we'll be doing now is that we'll be creating a new folder under 2016. So what I'll do is I'll be naming it practice.
But please, we can't see your screen.
You can see my screen?
No.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I created a new folder under 2016. It's called practice. And that's what we'll be using for today's class. So you check the code folder, that's where the example codes are. So that's it basically. So let's open our terminal. To open your terminal, you can go to this settings icon. Let me zoom in. You can go to the settings icon, then command palette, then terminal. You can just up to terminal. Sorry. You can also click on, if you are on Windows, just control backtick. If you're Mac, you can command backtick depending. So yeah. Then you can check it out to see the command palette here. Okay. Let's just use the control backtick or command backtick to open this terminal window, because you'll be using it. There's no way for you to install Hardhat without using this terminal system. So the first thing we do, first command that will be inputting is npx Hardhat init, which is initialize. It's just a short form of initialize. And let me click on enter. Sorry, before I do that, I have to navigate to the practice folder that I created. To navigate to any folder in command line, just type cd, then followed by the name of the folder in relative to where you are going. So I'm going to 2017 practice. So 2016 practice. So this you can see that this portion of the terminal change. It changed from workspace / Arbitrum Bootcamp 2023 to workspace / Arbitrum Bootcamp 2023 / training 16 / practice. That means I'm now in the practice folder. So that's how it works basically. And once you are done with that, just click on the directory you want to install the Hardhat into, like cd. If you have any other folder that you want to navigate to, you can just say cd, maybe XYZ or something. Take it to XYZ. I want to go back in terminal, just say dot dot, and it will take you back to the previous part. You can see that I'm now at workspace / Arbitrum Bootcamp 2023 2016. So that's it. Then if I want to go back to practice, I'll just say cd practice, and it take me back to the practice folder. If I want to go back, cd dot dot. If I want to go forward, cd name of where I want to go to, then to take me there. I can go back as many times as possible. You can see that I'm back to workspace / Arbitrum 2023 because I typed in cd twice. So that's how it was basically. To go back, cd dot dot. To go forward, just know where you want to go to and say cd 2016. So that's where I'm going, 2016. So you see that I'm in 2016 now. If I need to go to practice inside 2016, I'll say cd practice. If you take me to the training, to the practice inside 2016. But one thing is that if you try to go to somewhere that does not exist, like maybe cdxyz does not exist, you're going to get an error that okay, this does not exist. And that's true because if you look at this folder, there's nothing called XYZ or under practice. So you can only go to a file that exists. So that's basically. Let's try to run the command to install Hardhat. You need to be connected to the internet when installing Hardhat. But when you want to use Hardhat, maybe for testing, for practice, you don't really need internet, except you are connecting to a test network, which is of course you need to send information over the internet. So that's why you need a working network connection. If not for that, once you install that, you are good to go. Just say npx add that in it and click on enter. You meant to do this, you should see some prompt like do you want to use JavaScript, TypeScript, and other options. Just go with the first one, create a JavaScript project. Then where do you want to place this project? I want to place it under workspace Arbitrum Bootcamp 2023/2016/practice. So then I want to add it, I'll just click on Y, letter Y. Then I want to install some dependencies. I'll click on Y again, which will install all the dependencies. I click on Y. Y stands for yes. So the moment I clicked on Y, you can see there are new folders under my practice directory. You can see there is contract, there is script, there is test. There are a lot of other scripts that that got generated because I installed Hardhat. The other things that I installed now is that are the dependencies. We call them dependencies. So let's wait for this to finish up. So I'm done installing the project now. And that's one of the benefits of using this GitHub workspace. You don't need to worry about internet because everything happens over the online. So you don't need to worry about your internet speed because it's going to do most of the stuff online for you. Instead of spending like 1 gig downloading all the npm dependency, it's going to download everything online. The only thing just is an internet to connect to the workspace you are working with. But everything you are downloading, installing happens online. It doesn't happen on your system. Hope you get what I'm trying to say. So the next thing now is let's look at the default contract that comes with Hardhat. You can see that right now we can't although we can see the code, but it's not linted. That means it is not colored. When I say linted, it's not colored. So it is not well linted. It's just like normal text. So what we can do now is let's try to install a plugin or an extension. So go to the extension tab. Let me zoom out. So this is the extension tab. Yeah, just click on extension. This tab, click on extension, then click on what kind of extension you want to install. I want to install Solidity extension. This helps me to link my code and also uh, make everything look better. So let me click on reload. This is going to load my workspace. So you need to install Solidity extension for linking your code. If you don't do that, you'll be able to run at that. It doesn't really affect, but your code will not be linked. So I just like it linked and also really nice. Okay, welcome back. We are back. Let's open the file now, and you can see that we have some coloring now. So we have some colors, and this can really help us to write code in a more efficient way. So when there's an error, you get a warning, be able to fix it ASAP. So let's try to move on to the next stage. So apart from this contract folder, you can also see another folder called script folder. So this script folder has a JavaScript code, and this code is for deploying your contract. So unlike before, we use Remix, and what we do with Remix is that we open Remix, we compile our Solidity code. Once we compile, we go to the deploy and run transaction tab. We provide all the parameters and we click on deploy, and that's all. But that might not be really efficient when you want to set up complex system that can do a lot of stuff. Maybe you want to deploy 4 or 5 contracts at the same time. So the best thing you can do is using a script like Hardhat and iter.js to deploy your code. So what I will be doing now is that I will show you, I will run you through some of these lines of code. The first thing is that you are trying to import Hardhat. Then after that, you have this main function, which is asynchronous. Then you call the function at the end of the day to execute everything inside this function. Inside this function, you can see that you are getting a timestamp, which is the current timestamp. Also getting the unlocked time, you are getting the locked amount, and we are passing everything as a parameter to the lock contract. So if you check lock contract, let me go back to this contract. You can see that in the constructor here, there's a need to pass one parameter. And let's go back to the script. You can also see that we also passed in one parameter, which is the unlock time. So that's how it was basically. And now let's not go by the default contract. We have to also write our own contract too. But let me show you how to deploy a very simple contract, like the default contract using Hardhat, so you can see how it works. So to deploy in our local environment, what we just need to do is say npx Hardhat run, then the directory or the path that you want to, the path to your script, just put it there. So the path to my script is ./script/deploy, because from this 2016/practice, we have script, and also we have another file inside this folder that is called deploy.js. So I click on enter, it's going to compile the Solidity code and it's going to deploy it on local environment. It's not on any testnet, it's on my local environment. And you can see that we have a smart contract address. And if you have a smart contract address here, you can see I have the smart contract address here. And that's because we are deploying to the local environment. Now, to deploy to testnet or mainnet, you need to do some settings in your Hardhat config folder, which is here, hardhat.config.ts file, sorry. So once you come here, you'll be able to choose this version of Solidity that you want to use. If you want to use 0.8.20, you can easily just change it to 0.8.20, 0.8.22, blah, 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 or any version of Solidity that you want. But going with the default version, then the next thing is set up your network. So when you set up your network, it's going to be an object, and that object, it can have multiple networks all set up at the same time. So what I will do now is I will set up Arbitrum Sepolia, Arbitrum-Sepolia. Then once I'm done with that, I will open another object. Then what I will do is that I will provide some key information like my URL, which is the RPC URL to the Arbitrum Sepolia testnet. So how can you get that? You can just do an online search. That tons of RPC that you can use, but just make sure you're using the right one and it's from a reliable source, because they can hack you through that by using the wrong RPC. So now what I will do is that I have the RPC here in the in the code folder on GitHub already. So I'm going to copy the RPC. So once I copy the RPC, I can just paste it here and save. After that, I also need to provide the chain ID, which is the network ID, the network ID to the Arbitrum Sepolia testnet. So let me paste that one too. Then once I'm done, I'm going to also provide my wallet. So these are all the things that we do on Remix. We used to set the version number. We used to choose the network that I want to connect to via MetaMask. Then the next thing we do is we also set up our account. We can have multiple accounts, but I'll be using one account. It's basically an array, so you can put as many key as you want. So if you check my Hardhat config, you can see that there's no key. There's no key. I didn't push my key to GitHub. Always make sure I don't push your key to GitHub. So what I'll do is I'll open my MetaMask and get a new account. Let me get account 5. So this account 5 is going to be what I'll be using this morning for practice. So I'm going to retrieve the private key. So I want to reveal the private key. So this is private key to that account, and I was able to get it by clicking on the account icon. Then I clicked on these 3 dots. Then the next thing is the account details. Then I click on show private key. Then I'll put the password and click on confirm. I will click on O to review. Then that's all. Then I will copy my private key and put it here. Then I'll add 0x in front of the private key copy from MetaMask. You have to add OX in front of it, else it might not work. So let's continue. We are done with all the setup that we need to deploy something on Arbitrum Sepolia. So the next thing is we are going to now go back to this our scripts. I'll type in the same thing, npx hardhat run script / deploy.js. If I do this thing again and click enter, it's going to deploy to the local environment. But if I had an extra flag like network, then I put the network I want to deploy to, which is Arbitrum Sepolia here. So I can just put it as the, okay. Now. Yeah, so I typed in Arbitrum-Sepolia, then enter. It's going to deploy to Arbitrum Sepolia, and it should fail because I don't have enough gas. If you notice, there's 0 ether on that account. Let me check. Can you see that I'm getting an error that insufficient fund for gas times price plus value? So that means that I don't have enough ether to carry out that transaction using this private key. So what I will do now is that I will go back to my MetaMask and I will send small amount of ether to that account. Let me try to send. Let me send to account 5. Let me send the maximum I can send and click on next. So I've sent some ether to this wallet. So let me try to deploy now. After sending some ether. So you can see that I have a contract address that has been deployed. So now this address that has been deployed is on Arbitrum Sepolia testnet. So what we can do is that we can prove that by going to the Explorer. You can say sepolia.arbiscan.io. So let's paste the contract address that we got from our Hardhat output. Let's paste it. Let's click on search. You can see that we got a result, and it's showing us that this contract was deployed 39 seconds ago. which was almost the same time as when we ran the command. Now, the next thing is for us to check the former contract address that we got when we deployed locally and check whether it is on testnet. This is the former address, which is the old one, the first one we did. You will notice that the address might not be on Arbitrum Sepolia, and I'll tell you why I'm using might. The main reason why I say it might not be is because this address that we are using, whenever we don't set up our address, we don't set up our private key, it's a well-known address. Everyone all over the world, they have access to that account. So don't try to send money to that default account that comes with Hardhat. Create your own private key and set it up the way I later did. So and the main reason why I said it might not be is because when you deploy a contract, there's an algorithm that calculates what your contract address will be based on how many transactions or how many contracts you've deployed. So it's going to calculate. No, so now if you are deploying your first contract on network A, it's going to bring one address, then go to another EVM compatible or EVM based network. You'll be able to get the same address too, meaning you can deploy multiple contracts or different contract across multiple network and get the same contract address. So now someone might have deployed this lock contract already on this Arbiscan using the same well-known wallet that we are using. So we might see it there. But the only way to prove that it is not the recent one we deployed is by checking the timestamp or when was it deployed. So let's do that. Let's paste this address and search. You can see that we can see the address, although it should not be like that. I can say it's a very old address and a lot of people are using it already. It has been deployed. How many days? Like about. Let me want to check the age. The address is on Arbitrum, like Arbitrum Sepolia already. So it's very old. It's not the new one we deployed now. So don't get it confused that, oh, I can still see the contract I deployed on Arbitrum Sepolia using my local environment. No, it's not the same. Someone else deployed it because you are using a well-known account that is accessible to anyone anywhere in the world. So that's just the difference. It's not the new one we deploy. You can't see it. Basically, it's not the same thing. So since we deployed this address account on Arbitrum Sepolia, how do we now write a custom script? If I have my own contract that I want to deploy that is not the default log.sol, what I will do is I will come here and create a new file. I can name it anything, but since we'll be deploying the storage contract, which comes with remix by default or drop here. So let's copy the story.so contract. Once I copy the story.so contract from anywhere, I can copy it from GitHub online. So I will paste it here and I will save it. So the minute I save it, I can now try to write the script that will deploy this particular contract. So we come to your script folder, you can say deploy storage.ds. You can name it anything you want. It doesn't have to be deploy storage, but the code content is what matters most. If you look at your script folder, the one for the example, you can see that we have this simple code, which is very easy to understand. So let me write it from scratch so I can see how it works. The first thing you have to do is you have to import Hardhat. You can say const HRE is equal to require Hardhat. So you can see it's the same thing as what we have here. We are importing the Hardhat library. So the next thing is we can move forward to have the asynchronous main function. You can just async, then give it name function main, then you can have the curly braces, and that's all. Then once you are done with the function, you have to also call the function. so that it will execute. Because if you don't call this function, it's not automatically going to execute. It's a function. You have to call a function before it can execute. Now, how do we now deploy? You can deploy by using this line of code. You can say, let me write it from scratch. You can say const. Then you can say like the name of the contract I want to deploy. You can name storage contract or anything basically. It's equal to HRE dot is it dot factory or something? Let me check. Dot etas, yeah, dot etas dot deploy contract. Then once you have this, that's all you need. Then the name of the contract you want to deploy. You can have tons of contract in this your contract folder. You have to just know the name of the contract that you want to deploy. So the name of the contract I want to deploy is storage, which is this one. It's not the file name, it's the name of the contract itself. It's not please don't mix it up. The name of this file can be the name of this file can be storage file dot sol, and the name of the contract is storage. I have to use the name of the contract, not the name of the file. So don't mix it up, please. Now let's put the contract name, then move on to the next thing. You can say storage dot, then you say the wait for deployment, dot wait for deployment. But this will not work because this is an asynchronous function. So you have to like await it, means await. You have to await this line, then also you have to await this one too. Then once you deploy, the next thing is you can do console log. If you don't do console log, you will not get your address, the address you deploy to. You can say console log. You can say console log. Then you can now say storage dot target, which is the address that it will be deployed to. So that's how to deploy a contract using Hardhat basically. That's how to write a script that will deploy a contract. So what you do now is let's go to our terminal again and let's do the same thing. We can say npx Hardhat, then the next thing is run dot / script, then say deploy storage dot js. What network do you want to deploy to? You can set the network and say network hyphen network. Then you say, let's check the name of the network we used there. You can see that the name is Arbitrum Sepolia. Let me copy it and paste it here. Then enter. So I'm going to deploy this contract on Arbitrum Sepolia. You see, it compiled the file successfully and it deployed it on Arbitrum Sepolia and returned the the contract address. So the contract address we get now, we can easily take it to Arbitrum Sepolia and search for it. So you can see that we have 20 seconds ago, and it was deployed 20 seconds ago, about 20 seconds ago. Yeah, so that's how to write your own custom script and deploy using Arbitrum Sepolia. Let's now assume that this our contract has an argument. It's not just storage, it's something like this. Let me show you. If you have a constructor, something like constructor, I think constructor, then you int 256, let me say number. And how do you now pass number to? You can say number is equal to number by default. So this is like a constructor. This is a constructor that helps you to initialize this number by default. So how do you deploy this kind of contract? If you try to run this code now, it will fail because you are not passing the number argument to it. So if I try to run the script again, try to deploy an Arbitrum Sepolia, it's going to fail. So it's actually deployed, and that's probably due to the fact that it's defaulting to 0. So, but and normally this is what you are meant to do. Just come and say comma, then provide the list of argument that you want to put into it. You can see that they did the same thing with this deploy dot JS, they added the other argument that they want to pass, which is this unlock time, and they also pass the value, which is the when you want to deploy a contract and you also want to pass Ether with it. Maybe like want to deploy a contract, also fund the wallet, so you can use this value and pass it along with it. So now, let me say I want to deploy and send on 1,000. I can do that, and I will just say deploy, and that's all. Then I will get a new contract address, which is available on Arbitrum Sepolia easily. So let's now check the two contracts. This new contract that we have here now is accessible via this URL. Let's start it. You can see that by default, this contract is coming with a certain code, which is like a bit surprising because we didn't verify this contract. Why is it coming with code? It's because there are other similar source code on Etherscan, sorry, on Arbiscan already. So it's going to use some algorithm to match to this contract. Actually looks like something I've seen before. Okay, let's work with it like that. Let's make it, let's copy the code from the one we know to the one we did not know. Although it might not be 100% correct, but it will try as much as possible to match it. And that you can see that this is not the code that we deployed. It's just almost the same thing. This one does not have the constructor that we added. So it does just the difference. So now let me now try to read some of the information on this contract. You see, I'm at the read tab. So what I can click, what I can do now is so you can see we have retrieve. So once I click on retrieve, it's telling me 0. So let me try to write. So if I say retrieve, it's telling me 0. So the value of retrieve is 0 basically. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask now because we are done with today's class. And yeah, but let me just add one more thing before we leave. Isn't it stressful for you to come every time to specify the network you want to deploy to? Isn't it stressful? I see. Isn't it stressful to specify the network every time? So why not just make Arbitrum Sepolia your default network? To do that, you can come to your hardhat.config.js file and add another settings. You can just call it default network. Then, your default network is Arbitrum Sepolia, right? Just copy it and have it like this. Arbitrum Sepolia is my default network. So anytime you deploy without putting that network flag like this, I remove the network flag, right? So, and I click on deploy. It's going to deploy and it's going to deploy to Arbitrum Sepolia. So this is the contract address that we got now. Let me copy the contract address. Go to Arbiscan interface. So you can see that it was deployed 16 seconds ago. So that means it's now deploying to Arbiscan by default. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask your questions. Thank you. Toilope, you can unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear. Yeah.
All right. My question is based off the session that you just did now. So when you deployed a particular contract that, even though was similar to one that was already found on the network, I mean Arbitrum network, but then it's, instead of using your own unique contract, instead of deploying your own unique contract, it replaced it with something that was similar. So is there a reason to that? Reason why, instead of having, for instance, the constructor you put there was not found, they used other some other contract. So is there a reason why that is done? Is it for security purpose? And let's say you want to deploy on a mainnet, and you want to deploy a particular contract, because these days contracts can be similar, but maybe you just want to maybe modify the code a bit just to suit your maybe line or two or something like that, because these days there may be a particular stuff that you're trying to do and it's similar. So I hope there are no scenarios where after you've pushed out there, it now takes some other contract that looks similar because it's verified and all. I'm just something that revolving around that. So why is it that? And are there scenarios where even after modifying a bit of some other code, you now find not your code, but then the other one that is similar to it?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So the answer to that question is that the main reason why you are getting that, okay, there are some similar contracts to this contract that was deployed, is because this new contract that was deployed is not verified yet. The moment you verify the contract, it's going to give you the real contract that you deploy. And the main reason, another reason again, is that when you deploy a contract and it's telling that, oh, okay, this contract looks similar to some contract that have been deployed in the past, that is just giving the user an idea of what the contract could be all about. If there is any vulnerability in that contract, the user can see, even though it's not verified yet. That's one thing. And the way it does that is it checks what we call the bytecode of the contract. That, okay, this contract contains almost same bytecode as one of the verified smart contract on this network. Is it the same? It looks similar. Let's try to suggest whether it's the same code. The moment you verify your contract, you'll be able to avoid problems like that easily. So, and also your user can be rest assured that you are transparent with everything that you are doing. So that, and also in the next class, which is tomorrow or next tomorrow, we'll be looking at how we can verify smart contracts with Hardhat using Hardhat verify plugin. Yeah, Tolakwe, I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, excellently well. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we're open to more questions. If you have any other question, please feel free to ask for the mic. Feel free to ask for the mic. Feel free to ask for the mic.
I do have another question.
Okay, yeah, thank you. You can go.
Other in this case, because Ray mentioned during one of the sessions that you may need to test a contract. I think if I heard that correctly, then you can use likes of Hardhat, but not in all cases will it test for vulnerability. I'm only trying to clarify. So does it mean after you have used Hardhat to test your contract, it's free of any type of vulnerability, and what's the sole aim of using Hardhat to test? Is it just functional testing or trying to evade or take away all vulnerabilities in that code? So after using Hardhat, can you be rest assured that all the vulnerabilities have been taken away or removed? So for people that do like security testing, what tools do they use aside the knowledge? Is it Hardhat or it just goes beyond Hardhat?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So there is no tool in this world that you can use to test your smart contract and you'll be rest assured that there is no vulnerability in your code. That's one thing you have to know. very well. Then the role of Hardhat in testing is that you can use Hardhat for unit testing. It comes with like Kai to like test um your contract. So you can easily test your contract for simple and also advanced scenarios. Like, okay, there's a way you can fast forward time. You can fast forward time because when you are working on mainnets and you write a logic that can take up to 20, 40, 50, or even a year to execute, how are you sure that that contract does not contain any vulnerability or any logical error that will prevent the contract from functioning the way it is meant to? The only way to do that is by using a test suite that also can help you to fast forward time. So you can fast forward the time to like a year or two, so you can see the behavior of the contract after 1 year or 2 years, or even after maybe 1,000 interactions, 2,000 interactions, to ensure that there's no overflow or underflow in your contract. So that's one of the things you also need to know about that. So then a lot of tools you can use. You can use Lisa, which is or is a plugin that is available. Let me share my screen and let me install it so that you can see how it works. Basically, that's a very good question from Tolulope, and it also shows that you are very curious to know how this thing works. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, thank you. So let me come to this place. Then I will install the tool. You can see I'm searching for it already. So this is it. You can see static analysis for your Solidity code. It's going to help you to test, to look for vulnerabilities in your code, and it will tell you, oh, okay, this is what is wrong, how severe it is, and stuff like that. Okay. So let's check this installation. Into some. So you can see these are things you need to do for it to work properly. So you have to first clone this thing, then do all those basic setup for it to work properly. But let's go and check this. This is analytics tool here. So I'm coming. Let's check if there's any command. Okay, it's not working yet. Okay, yeah. There's an announcement from Smile. Okay, sorry, there is no announcement actually. So yeah, it's just so you can see that there are different levels of there's high vulnerability, medium, low information now. So these are things that you can learn about your code. Let me try to get this thing to work. Okay. I have to install there are some other dependencies that I have to install for it to work, basically. So yeah, let me check. So you need to install this. So you need to install the Python package. Okay, yeah, Kevin Eniola and Trust, you can unmute, please. No, any are you there? Trust, you can also unmute if you have any question.